we have some serious things to talk about. MasterCard and Visa are blocking games. What is going on with this?
Support lines are overwhelmed, and customers are getting hung up on as they try to figure out what's going on after tens of thousands of games have been removed from itch.io and Steam. These gamers are just trying to get answers, but nobody from Visa seems to have a clear explanation. In the meantime, MasterCard has released an official statement for this issue. Both Steam and itch.io are facing a massive wave of censorship. On itch.io, the platform completely de-indexed all adult content.
17,551. Wow. 17,000 plus games they took off Steam. Or, yeah, 17,000 games they took off the internet because they didn't agree with how these people express themselves. Okay, here's the reality. I don't care if you play a horrible rapist game as long as you're not breaking any laws. Okay? I think credit cards should be essentially the same thing as utilities. Water bill, electric bill. You should not be able to stop payment processes from being made because you don't like person's ideology, especially when MasterCard and Visa are essentially monopolies.
From search and browse pages. This was a drastic move, which itch.io confirmed they had to make to protect the platform's core payment infrastructure. But this isn't just an itch.io problem. Steam has also been quietly delisting games even after the first initial ones. More games are getting removed from Steam, even some with very...
And let's take a look at these games. Again, I'm not the kind of guy that plays these games. I think these games are gross, personally. They're not my kind of thing. But I still think you should have the right to play them as long as you're not breaking any laws. Like, as long as there's no kids in them, I think you should be able to play the weirdest shit you can play as long as it's legal. And these games aren't breaking any laws. I think they're weird, but I think you should be able to play them. Apparently Visa and MasterCard don't.
More games are getting removed from Steam, even some with very little adult content. The reason for all of this is intense pressure from payment networks like Visa and MasterCard, or even other ones like PayPal and Stripe. Although some want to just blame Steam for removing these games, they essentially had no choice. In a post Collective Shout made trying to celebrate, as they really only care about censoring as many things.
Collective Shout, my personal message to you is what goes around comes around
As possible, they specifically mention how they tried to get Steam to listen to them for months, but obviously Valve never listened. So they had to take it a step further and complain to payment processors instead, which is where these companies like Visa and MasterCard were able to abuse their power and force games to get removed. Now, itch.io is taking a two-part approach to this problem. The first is a long-term plan, finding new payment partners who are more accepting of a wider range of content. This is a crucial step for the platform to become less dependent on the rules of a few powerful companies. While this doesn't fix the underlying issue of these payment processors controlling what gets sold, it gives itch.io a fighting chance to bring back the removed content and continue supporting adult games. itch.io has begun relisting some free adult games. This is a huge piece of the puzzle. Since these games don't require a payment processor, their return proves that the issue isn't with itch.io or Steam's rules, but with the financial companies themselves. Like we talked about in our...
So what you're telling me is the free games that Steam doesn't have to actually charge people, they're actually allowing those games because Visa and MasterCard don't actually have to be used in such process of games. So yeah, there's your answer. Visa and MasterCard are absolutely making Visa and MasterCard are the puppeteer pulling the strings saying you're not allowed to buy this because of that, because our brand doesn't reflect that. Well, fuck your brand. You know why? Because your brand pulls up the ladder of any other credit card small business that wants to come up. You've essentially built a monopoly and a system where you've pulled the ladder of every single small business organization that tries to come up. So when you've done that and you've created a monopoly, guess what you are now? You are now a utility. Fuck, man. Imagine if the water got shut off because you voted left wing or right wing. Or imagine if your power went off in the middle of winter because you said something wrong on the internet. That's essentially the same thing what we're doing right now. That's literally what's going on, except it's payment process. And in 2025, you can't survive without using a credit card or a payment process. It's you can't do it. So yeah, no, they're pulling their strings too hard, and this needs to change.
Last video, gamers aren't having any of it and are now using the same tactics Collective Shout used to express their complaints to payment processors like Visa and MasterCard. I am actively seeing more reports of users calling these companies to complain, and this organized effort is having a visible effect on their customer service. Support staff are now clearly overwhelmed. I have seen a bunch of reports and stories from people who have said they called Visa and then would just get hung up on, which I
Call Visa, asked about censorship. You need to email us so I can get a generic email. I'd like to speak to a manager. Please wait, picks up. I'm about to transfer you. Okay, yes, you need to go make an email. Hands up. Oh my gosh, I almost wanna try it. This is hilarious. Let's try it, guys. I'm actually gonna find the phone number for Visa while we're watching this video, and I'll give them a quick call.
100% believe, because every time I've called Visa, I would get a similar response. It would start off great, but as soon as the customer service agent on the other end realized what I was talking about, whether it was because I mentioned Steam or video games or censorship, they would instantly speak over me, tell me to send an email, and then just hang up. Even if I didn't stop talking, they would just sigh and repeat the same response over and over. Another time, the Visa rep just reread the Visa email we talked about in our previous video before hanging up, like that was supposed to fix the issue. Every call had nearly the exact same response from Visa, saying to email so they can send you this copy-paste response, and then they would just hang up. With every call having a similar response, it seems extremely likely that the Visa support staff was briefed on the situation.
We'll give them a call
and
after
what to
this
say.
video.
Or in this case, say pretty much nothing at all, and then just hang up. It seems pretty
I have
clear
the number
that Visa
right
is
here.
now getting overwhelmed by the backlash, although some will say don't annoy these innocent employees who have no say in the matter.
No. Annoy the shit out of them. Do what the Karens did in that other country and annoy the shit out of them. Completely block their service. What you do is you overwhelm their service. And guys, I've worked in a similar format. This completely fucks up their entire business model. They have to temporarily hire like a huge amount of people just to filter all the garbage calls. So yes, keep doing this. Keep pushing them. They will change back. They'll be forced to.
Well, this is the exact strategy Collective Shout used, and
Yep.
it worked. So as Visa seems to be getting tired over the phone, it doesn't seem like gamers are stopping anytime soon. The goal is to make Visa realize that if they want to listen to these activist groups like Collective Shout, the backlash will be much larger. Now, as I'm making this video, even MasterCard has responded to the situation. Previously, we had Visa, and now is MasterCard, saying clarifying recent headlines on gaming content. MasterCard has not evaluated any game or required restrictions of any activity on game creator sites and platforms, contrary to media reports and allegations.
That is total and complete and utter bullshit. That's complete and total utter bullshit. We're calling them after this. We're definitely calling Visa after this.
Our payment network follows standards based on the rule of law. Put simply, we allow all lawful purchases on our network. At the same time, we require merchants to have appropriate controls to ensure MasterCard cards cannot be used for unlawful purchases, including illegal adult content. So very similar to Visa, they're pretty much saying that they allow all lawful purchases and really only go after illegal adult content.
So why are they taking off 10,000 video games that they just don't like?
But within just hours of this being posted, it has quickly been community noted, saying both Steam and itch have stated their removal of adult content came from pressure by payment processors, including MasterCard. Furthermore, MasterCard and other payment processors have a documented history of refusing service to Japanese retailers over legal adult content. So although both Visa and MasterCard are trying to deny it, their history speaks for itself. Although these obviously aren't the responses we want, I think this is a pretty good sign because it shows we have these payment processor companies' attention. And if we potentially keep up the pressure, they will just have to listen.
Oh yeah, no, they'll have to listen because if you keep pressuring them, their whole system's gonna be bogged down and it'll be fucked. They won't be able to continue doing business. And if they will continue to do business, it's just gonna be hell on earth for them. And not even the executive wants to deal with that. The executive of that company does not want to come onto his office one day, see his sheet of paper, and show numbers that do not reflect of the business he wants to run. When you call companies like this in a substantial amount of frequency, you bog everything and you stop production. And production needs money. You stop production, you stop the money. Well, we're stopping the production by calling your company thousands of times over and over and over. And plus, when you do that, you lose good people because people quit. You lose your experienced people who have been doing it for years and they just can't do it anymore. And you also lose the people that just came in that you've invested probably like $5,000, $6,000 into the training. So it's just a double. Yeah, keep pushing, keep pushing. We're going to call them after this.
Stripe, which is one of the main payment processors
Call
used
Visa
on
after
itch.io,
this.
has directly addressed the situation. They confirmed that they will not be able to support adult content that fits the following definition: content designed for sexual gratification. Stripe also...
So why can you not, why can you use Visa or MasterCard for Pornhub? Why can you use that for that? Just throwing that out there. And to be fair, if you're paying for porn in 2025, you need help.
wanted to pass this message along to gamers. Stripe is currently unable to support sexually explicit content due to restrictions placed on them by their banking partners, despite card networks generally supporting adult content with the appropriate registrations. Stripe has indicated that they hope to be able to support adult content in the future, which is a bit interesting because they say they want to support adult content in the future, but due to their banking partners, they can't. This raises the next question. Who are these banking partners? When Stripe explains why they can't work with certain businesses, they point directly to the strict rules and regulations of payment networks like Visa and MasterCard. This proves that even though Stripe in this situation is the direct processor, they are still under the control of these larger networks like Visa and MasterCard. If you remember this elevated risk line from Visa's email, well, it's back. When Stripe explains businesses that pose a brand risk, pornography is included. Financial institutions and payment networks care about the brand and reputational risk that associated businesses pose. There are a set of businesses that our financial partners do not want to be associated with, even if there is a market demand for them. Stripe doesn't independently reject businesses based on brand risk. We have many unpopular businesses and causes on Stripe, but we are at times obliged to enforce the restrictions of our partners. This confirms what we've seen before. Visa and MasterCard have the power to force companies to follow their rules. They don't necessarily have to be a direct payment processor on a platform like itch.io. They just have to be somewhere in the payment chain to have complete control. Stripe even further explains this when they tried to work with a startup, but were forced to stop after their financial partners did not agree. So although Visa claims they don't moderate content, they simply just force any company they are working with to follow their rules, or they won't work with them. This shows a very dangerous power dynamic, where a few powerful financial companies can dictate what is and isn't acceptable.
It's the same thing, like I said earlier. Imagine if your water company shut off your water to your house because you bought a game they didn't like. These credit card companies are utilities. They're not businesses anymore. They're utilities. They need to be treated as such.
even when the content is perfectly legal. But as Itch has confirmed, they are currently in talks with new payment processors, which will hopefully be a step in the right direction. I have reached out to Valve for a statement on if they will be looking for new payment processors or going to be re-adding crypto as an option. So
No,
if I
they're
hear
not doing
back, I
that.
will for sure give you an update. Of course, these aren't solutions that will fix the underlying problem, as it seems like we will need the government to get involved, but it will at least give control back to these platforms so they don't have to follow the rules of these payment processors. The outcome of this situation will have a long-lasting impact on gamers and developers everywhere. Will platforms
This doesn't just affect gamers. This affects everybody. What happens if you decide to post something online and the bank doesn't like it and they just refuse to bank with you? And what I mean by bank, Visa or MasterCard. Like, where does it stop?
like Steam find a stable solution, or will this be a permanent shift in what kind of content is allowed online? And really assessor company.
I think this guy does fantastic. He just give this guy a sub and a like. I'll put his link for the video in the chat here so you guys can find it. There you go. Yeah. So now we're gonna call Visa. Let's do it. Let's call Visa and see what all the fuss is about, huh?
Please listen carefully as our menus have changed. Customer care services. To expedite your request, please have your Visa card number available and choose from the selections
One moment.
provided. For English, press. Such as account balance or payment information, press 1.
Got my Visa right here.
Or to request an emergency card or cash, press 2.
Just press 0. Just keep pressing
Please hold
0.
while your call is transferred to a customer service specialist.
There we go.
Accuracy and quality of this call may be recorded and monitored. Any information you provide to us on this call will be used to assist you and for the other purposes described in the privacy notice posted at visa.com.
Calling Visa, this is Camille. How can I help?
Hey, my name is John. I'm kind of curious. I don't understand, but I'm trying to purchase a game on Steam, and now all of a sudden the game's not there, and Steam is telling me that because of their payment processes, they're taking off games. Why is that happening?
I understand. Sir, this is handled by the management team. I cannot actually provide further information to it since you're calling lost or stolen. If you would like for further information, you can visit our webpage, which is
Well, yeah, I did that actually. Yeah, about that. I looked at your responses that your website gave us, and it's just actually completely inaccurate. It's completely false. Steam actually shows the proof and telling their whole community saying, "Hey, we're not allowing these games anymore because Visa and MasterCard have forced us to." That's essentially what they've done. And I've read your little website. It's completely false and inaccurate. I just want to make sure that you guys are getting a call about it, and just want to let your managers know that everyone that I know and everyone that is affiliated with me hates you guys for it and want you guys to stop going to people's homes and determining what they can and can't do. It's not illegal.
I understand. I'll be sending this information to our management team so that they'll be able to assist in regards to this. But if aside from this, is there anything else I could assist?
No, I just want to let you know that services are essentially under threat of being boycotted and hated forever.
Okay. I understand. Thank you for the information, sir. I won't take too much of your time. For calling, please.
If everyone just calls Visa and just fucks with them like that, just keep calling them. Oh my gosh. Well, that's funny. No, what I was trying to do is I was trying to find the game on Grok that was deleted off of Steam. But I couldn't find it because they actually answered really quickly. I'm actually really surprised how fast they answered. That's impressive. Let me put my credit card out of sight. But yeah, no, give this guy a like, give this guy a sub. This guy's legit. We'll move on to something. Actually, about that. Guys, last week, 2 weeks ago that happened. Not even 2 weeks, like a week and a half ago, and Trump's already signing shit to make it go away. What the hell? Like literally, this happened 1 day ago, so let's take a look and see.
President Trump just signed a new executive order, and it could be the biggest news for gamers you haven't heard yet. Games are being censored, not by Steam though, but by the banks that handle the money. This new executive order is the first legal step in stopping this. Recently, if you haven't heard, some games were removed from the Steam store, but this wasn't because of a bug or a developer's choice. Instead, it happened because a big payment company like MasterCard decided that a few games were a reputational risk. This is a vague rule that lets them pressure a company like Steam to remove any games they don't like. As a result, the banks that handle the money for Steam got involved, creating a chain of pressure that led to the games actually being removed. This is a big deal because it shows that a third-party company that handles the money, not the government or Steam itself, is now deciding what we can and can't buy.
That's pretty much, yeah, that explains it.
This kind of power is a form of digital censorship, and is especially concerning since a new rule was recently added to Steam's guidelines that gives them the power to remove content that may violate the rules and standards set forth by our payment processors. The thing is, the Steam situation is just one example of a much bigger problem. It's part of a growing trend of these payment companies censoring or even debanking anything they don't like.
Here's an example of this. Over in Canada, I know we're in America, but I'll use a Canadian example. So during 2006, I think it was 2020 range, they had truckers that had some kind of protest, and essentially Canada straight up took all their banking rights away. And they said they couldn't do their job, they couldn't do anything. They were pretty much locked. What do you do without a bank account? Nothing.
Banking is when banks or payment companies close accounts or refuse to work with people and businesses for reasons that aren't actually about money. The censorship we're seeing on platforms like Steam is very similar to how banks debank people. The payment processors are essentially saying, if you don't remove this content, we will stop doing business with you, which means you can't get paid. This is a direct financial threat. It's what itch.io stated when they said they had to act urgently to protect the platform's core payment infrastructure. And also when Valve said if they didn't remove the games, it would prevent customers from buying games and content across Steam. The White House announcement calls this politicized or unlawful debanking, and highlights how some financial institutions have restricted access to services on the basis of political or religious beliefs.
I want to read this for a second. The term politicized or unlawful debanking refers to an act by a bank, savings association, credit union, or other financial services provider to directly or indirectly adversely restrict access to or adversely modify the conditions of accounts, loans, or other banking products or financial services of any customer or potential customer on the basis of the potential customer's political or religious beliefs, or on the basis of the potential customer's lawful business activities that the financial service provider disagrees with or disfavors for political reasons. Holy shit, that is fucking broad. Wow, that is very broad. They can do whatever they want with that. This is massive. This is massive, guys.
Or lawful business activities. So this isn't just about video games. Something similar has happened to cryptocurrency companies, legal gun stores, and even anime stores. The White House announcement points to other examples as well, such as when federal regulators suggested banks flag individuals who made transactions related to companies like Cabela's and Bass Pro Shop. These payment
This is
networks
huge,
are essentially
guys.
the roads of the digital economy. By controlling these roads, these companies can stop anyone they disagree with from doing business, even if they haven't broken any real laws. So, to fight back against this, President Trump has signed a new executive order called Guaranteeing Fair Banking for All Americans. This is a direct response to what the president's office calls systemic abuses by financial institutions that undermine free expression and economic opportunity. This new
I'm sorry, I want to read that. As a result, individuals, their businesses, and their families have been subjected to debanking on the basis of their political affiliations, religious beliefs, or lawful business activities, and have suffered frozen payrolls, debt, and crushing interest, and other significant harms to their livelihoods, reputations, and financial well-being. Such practices are incompatible with a free society and the principle that the provisions of banking services should be based on material, measurable, and justifiable risk. Such practices, when wielded to discriminate against customers and businesses in credit transactions due to their religion, are also unlawful under the Equal Credit Opportunity Act. They further undermine public trust in banking institutions and their regulators, discriminate against political beliefs and free expression of those beliefs, and weaponize a politicized, holy shit, I can't read today, a politicized regulatory state. Guys, this is so broad. Like, Trump. Oh man, this is pretty broad. This is amazing. This is a band-aid to the problem, but this is the good first step.
economic opportunity. This new rule tells federal groups that watch over banks to stop using vague reasons like reputational risk in their guidance.
Within 180 days of the date of this order, each appropriate federal banking regulatory shall, to the greatest extent permitted by law, remove the use of reputation risk or equivalent concepts. Boys, this is massive for video games. This essentially says, hey, Visa, MasterCard. Hold on a minute. We're going to have to take a second. Okay, so that's essentially what this does. It takes Visa and MasterCard. Fuck you, Visa and MasterCard. You're gonna have to do your job, essentially be a utility, because you've monopolized your whole environment when it comes to Visa and MasterCard and credit cards in general, and you've essentially forced down every American's throat a 30% interest if they're a little bit late on their payment. Fuck you for that. That's bullshit. So, sorry. America has decided to make you play by the rules. When you create a monopoly, you become a utility. And this is the first steps to that.
And manuals. The order is specific, stating that regulators must remove the use of reputational risk or equivalent concepts that could result in politicized or unlawful debanking. From now on, banks must make their decisions based on clear financial reasons. The order also directs federal banking regulators to review banks for any past or current policies that encourage politicized or unlawful debanking.
Any past? Are you telling me they're going to go after them and punish them at least a little bit for screwing over Americans? They really should. I think Visa and MasterCard should financially hurt because of what they've done.
And to take action, including charging a fine. The ultimate goal of this order, as stated by the White House, is to ensure that no American should be denied access to financial services because of their beliefs, affiliations, or political views.
Guys, it's a really simple concept. Replace financial services with water or electric services. It's not much different. Like, literally, guys, it's internet services, water services, electric services, gas services. There's no difference here. You know why I'm using those examples? Is because you're required to use those to live in today's world. You need heat, you need water, you need internet, you need a way to move your money. You know why? The world is ran by money.
This is meant to prevent any financial unfair treatment and give fair access to banking for all legal businesses and people. So how does this new order connect directly to our problem on Steam? This is where the details of how payments work become really important. As Valve confirmed in their response, MasterCard didn't go directly to Valve and tell them to remove the games. MasterCard communicated with acquiring banks. These are the banks that handle the money for businesses like Steam. MasterCard cited one of its rules, Rule 5.12.7, which says that a business can't process transactions that may damage the goodwill of the corporation or...
That's almost as broad as Trump's new law. That's more broad. No wonder why. Wow, fight fire with fire. That was smart. Yeah. You don't get to do this when you're essentially a monopoly/utility, in my opinion.
Or reflect negatively on the marks. It's important to know that Visa has a very similar rule, just showing how this is a widespread issue across the payment industry. This is a perfect example of a vague reputational risk clause. MasterCard didn't have to prove the games were illegal, just that they were a risk to their brand. This was in response to a small number of complaints from the activist group Collective Shout. The acquiring banks, fearing that they would lose their partnership with a major payment network, then pressured Valve to remove the games. Valve complied, which is why they weren't fully debanked. So the executive order aims to stop this by forcing financial institutions to justify their decisions based on individual, objective, and risk-based analysis.
Which is exactly how it should be. It should not have to. You should not have to worry about who you vote for when you go take a loan from the bank. That should not. That shouldn't even cross your mind.
The key difference is simple. Risk-based analysis is about measurable financial threats. Reputational risk is about feelings and public opinion. The new executive order is designed to stop financial companies from using the second one as an excuse to shut down legal businesses. The new executive order is...
Guys, I didn't think this was gonna be the gamer president. I thought JD Vance maybe would be the gamer president, but Trump is the gamer president, dude. Straight up, he has saved video games. Or at least he saved them a lot of heartache and a lot of hell. Thank you, Trump, for doing this. From the gamer community, from the bottom of my heart, thank you.
Is designed to stop financial companies from using the second one as an excuse to shut down legal businesses. This could protect
bullshit.
Game developers from being unfairly censored. So what can we expect now? While this executive order is a major step, it has its limitations. Some might argue that it doesn't mean much because it can't directly regulate companies like MasterCard or Visa. However, the executive order does create a powerful incentive for banks to stop caving to this type of pressure. If an acquiring bank knows that it could be fined by a federal regulator for acting on a reputational risk concern, it's far less likely to do so. This could make the vague rules of payment processors effectively powerless. According to Valve's newest statement, they were pressured by these banks, citing MasterCard's rule. So while Valve wasn't formally debanked, they were put in a position where they had to choose between censorship and a massive financial threat.
That's the same thing in my opinion. When you threaten to debank someone, it's the same thing as debanking them. You're forcing them to do what you want.
This is the exact thing this executive order is trying to stop. Looking forward though, this executive order could pave the way for more changes. We could see new legislation like the Fair Access to Banking Act gain momentum in Congress. This act, which has seen bipartisan support, aims to prevent banks from using subjective, non-financial standards when deciding who to do business with. A new law would have way more power than an executive order. It could directly...
Like I said earlier, it's a band-aid, but it's a good band-aid.
And legally stop payment networks from denying service based on a business's legal activities or political views. The details of the bill are designed to force this change. For example, it would prevent banks from making decisions based on unfair and random standards, a legal way of saying a decision made without a good, clear reason. The bill requires banks to have a written, documented report showing a risk-based analysis for all decisions. This means they would have to back up their choices with clear, factual information, not vague concerns about their brand. This would be
Surprisingly enough, here's the thing. This is a blessing in disguise for them. Do you know why? Because this will effectively make them do their job better and they'll actually make some money.
a more permanent solution, like treating these payment companies as essential services. So if the pressure from payment processors start to disappear, the new rule on Steam would become unnecessary and could pave the way for a return to a more hands-off content policy on the platform. So although the fight to stop censoring games is not over yet, there are some signs it might not last forever.
This guy's awesome. Yeah, no, again, give this guy a sub. I'll link the video to the stream here.